"They took my clothes, rancher. Please help me," pleaded the Apache woman bathing by the lake. Eli liked this time of day. The air was still. The animals were calm. Nothing usually happened. That was why the voice stopped him cold. "Please, please help me." Eli froze. His hand stayed on the fence post as he listened. The voice was clear, human, and close. It came from the direction of the lake. No one was supposed to be near the lake. Eli took a slow breath and turned his horse. "Hello," he called, keeping his voice steady. "Who's there?" There was a pause. Then the voice answered again, stronger now but still careful. "I don't mean harm, I am stuck. They took my clothes, I don't understand how." Eli frowned. That made no sense. He urged the horse forward, moving slowly through the tall grass until the trees opened and the lake came into view. The lake was wide and clear, its surface smooth like glass. Mist floated above the water, glowing softly in the evening light. Eli had always felt something strange about this place. His scanners never worked right near it, and animals avoided it for no clear reason. Near the edge of the water stood a woman, half hidden by reeds and mist. She stayed still, holding herself with calm control. Her eyes were sharp, watching him closely. "I will not move closer," she said. "I ask only for help." Eli stopped at a respectful distance and dismounted. He took off his jacket and held it out, laying it on a rock without stepping nearer. "My name's Eli," he said. "I own the ranch land around here. I'm not here to hurt you." The woman nodded once. "I am Talani," she said. "I am Apache. I am a cultural envoy from the northern settlement." That surprised him. He had heard of her people. The Apache communities were known for holding tightly to their traditions, even far from Earth. "What were you doing here?" Eli asked. "I was performing a purification ritual," Talani said. "It is part of who I am. This lake was marked as safe land." Eli glanced at the water again. "Safe according to who?" "According to the maps," she replied. "But something here is not human." That sent a chill through him. "I placed my clothing and tools on the shore," she continued. "When I returned, they were gone, not taken by hands, taken by something that does not understand." Eli crouched, studying the ground. There were no footprints, no signs of struggle. Only faint marks in the dirt like smooth lines pressed and lifted away. "This area messes with sensors," he said quietly. "I always thought it was just bad rock." Talani shook her head. "It is watched." That word hung heavy in the air. "By who?" Eli asked. "Not who," she said. "What?" They stood in silence as the mist shifted. Then Eli's wrist scanner buzzed softly. A symbol flashed, one he had never seen before. Not human, not hostile, just present. Eli swallowed. "You're not alone here, are you?" "No," Talani said, "and neither are you." A low hum came from the lake, gentle but deep. The water rippled outward in perfect circles. Eli raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "All right," he said. "Let's all stay calm." The hum changed, almost like a reply. Talani watched the water carefully. "They are observers," she said. "They study, they collect, but they do not understand meaning." The mist thickened, forming faint shapes above the surface, light without bodies, movement without weight. Eli had dealt with strange things before. Frontier life demanded it. But this was different. These were not raiders or wild creatures. These were thinkers. "They took your clothes because they thought they were objects?" Eli asked. "Yes," she said. "To them they were discarded materials. They do not understand privacy or ritual." Eli let out a slow breath. "That figures." The light shapes pulsed softly as if listening. "They need to give them back," Eli said firmly. "Those things matter." Talani looked at him, studying his face. "That is why I asked for help," she said. "You are not Apache, but you understand respect." Eli shrugged slightly. "Out here you learn fast. Land remembers how you treat it." The hum grew louder. Symbols appeared in the air, forming patterns that shifted too quickly to read. "They are scanning your reactions," Talani said. "They learn through response." "Well," Eli said, standing straight, "let's give them a good lesson." He stepped forward carefully and spoke clearly, slow enough to be understood. Those items were not trash, he said. They were part of a person you took without asking. That breaks trust. The lights paused. Eli continued using simple words. Humans place meaning on things. You must ask before taking, always. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, from the edge of the lake, a soft glow appeared. Objects rose gently from the ground, folded cloth, tools, and a small carved symbol wrapped carefully together. They floated toward the shore and rested on the rock beside Eli's jacket. Talani let out a quiet breath she had been holding. They are learning, she said. Eli nodded. Good, because this land isn't a lab, it's home. The lights faded slightly, the hum lowering into something almost peaceful. Talani stepped forward and retrieved her belongings, moving with calm dignity. She wrapped herself and stood tall again, whole. Thank you, she said. Not just for the jacket, for speaking as a human. Eli smiled faintly. That's all I know how to do. The lake grew still once more, but Eli knew something had changed. The watchers had been seen, and more importantly, they had been answered. As night fell, the first stars came out above the quiet water. Eli had the strong feeling that this was only the beginning. The night passed slowly over Eli Calder's ranch. The lake reflected the stars like a mirror, smooth and calm. Eli could not sleep. Every few minutes he glanced toward the water, expecting the strange hum or glowing shapes to return. But the lake remained still, almost ordinary, except for the quiet tension that lingered in the air. By dawn, the mist had lifted. Talani stood at the shore again, gathering the last of her belongings. She moved with patience and care, as if each movement mattered. Eli approached her, holding his hat in his hands. I wanted to make sure you were okay, he said. After last night, he let the sentence trail off. Words felt unnecessary. Talani smiled faintly. I am safe, she said, for now, but the watchers are still here. I can feel them. Eli frowned. Still watching, they didn't leave. No, she said, they never leave. Not entirely. They learn from everything we do. Humans are fascinating to them. Eli chuckled, shaking his head. Humans are fascinating and frustrating, mostly to themselves, though. Talani's eyes softened. That is why they struggle to understand us. Eli nodded slowly. He had learned that humans often solved problems not by strength but by patience and cleverness. That same trait would be crucial here. I can show them, Talani said suddenly. I can teach them. Eli raised an eyebrow. Teach them what? Meaning, she said. Humans do not act without it. Objects, rituals, words, every action carries meaning. They took my clothes because they could not see it. They will not understand unless we show them. Eli thought for a moment. The idea made sense. On this planet, strange things often tested his instincts. He had survived because he could think fast, listen carefully, and adapt. That skill would be useful now, too. All right, he said, let's teach them. By mid-morning, they returned to the lake together. Eli brought a simple tablet from his home, one that could record audio and video. Talani brought a small set of symbolic objects, a carved feather, a bowl, a strip of cloth. Each object had deep meaning to her people. The air above the lake shimmered faintly, and Eli noticed shapes moving in the mist. They were not solid, but they had form, as if the air itself had taken shape. The watchers had arrived. Talani stepped forward confidently. We will show you, she said, addressing the shapes as if they could understand. This feather represents honor. This cloth represents identity. This bowl represents life and sustenance. The watchers moved slowly, their forms shifting and floating closer to the shore. They observed silently, never touching, never interfering. Eli stayed back, holding the tablet steady. They're listening, he said softly, or whatever counts as listening for them. Talani nodded. She spoke clearly, slowly. We place meaning on things. We honor what is important to us. Taking without understanding is not harmless, it is disrespect. The mist pulsed gently. A soft glow appeared around the objects. The watchers seemed curious. They are learning, Eli whispered. They really are, Talani smiled. They understand a little. Not everything, but they can feel the intent. Eli thought about how humans survived on frontier worlds, not with weapons, not by force, but by using brains, hearts, and empathy. That was why humans were remarkable. That was why they could face beings far more advanced and not be crushed. You know, Eli said, this is exactly like teaching a young animal. You show them gently, you explain slowly, you wait for them to understand. Talani laughed softly. Yes. But these are not young animals. They are different, yet the same lesson applies. Hours passed as they continued the demonstration. Eli recorded the scene while Talani moved the objects, explained their meaning, and illustrated small rituals. The watchers floated closer each time, their glowing forms bending to observe more closely. At one point, a shape hovered near the feather. It paused, then moved back as if unsure. Talani knelt and placed her hand over the feather. "Respect," she said. "Do you see? This is respect. We do not take without permission." The watchers pulsed, and the hum that had been faint all night became stronger, almost musical. It was not threatening. It was curious, attentive. Eli stepped forward. "Talani, maybe we should try a story," he said. They might understand a story better than objects. She considered this. A story, yes. Stories carry meaning clearly. It is a good idea. Eli nodded. "All right, listen carefully." He cleared his throat. Once, a small settlement lived on the edge of the desert. They depended on the land, the water, and each other. Every tool, every piece of cloth, every stone had meaning. One day, travelers came and took things without asking. They did not understand the people. They did not understand the land. He paused, letting the shapes absorb the words. The settlement did not respond with anger. They showed the travelers why the items mattered. They showed the meaning of each thing. And in time, the travelers learned. Talani's eyes shone. "It is exactly as I said. Humans teach through demonstration, through meaning, through patience." The watchers moved again, closer this time. They hovered over the objects and the story, pulsing in rhythm with Talani's explanation. Eli realized something important. The watchers were not evil. They were learners. Humans could survive and even influence advanced beings, not by fighting but by showing intelligence, dignity, and respect. That was humanity's strength. By late afternoon, the lake was quiet again. The objects had been returned to Talani's hands, and the watchers had moved slightly back, still hovering but no longer interfering. Talani looked at Eli with quiet gratitude. "You helped me teach them," she said. "I could not have done it alone." Eli smiled. "You didn't need much help. You only needed someone to speak clearly and someone to record it for proof." She nodded. "They will go back now and observe elsewhere, but they will remember this lesson." Eli glanced at the mist-covered lake. "Do you think they will?" "They will," Talani said firmly. "They learn slowly, but humans, we make them learn faster." Eli thought about that. Humans were strange, messy, emotional, but that was exactly what made them remarkable. They survived not by strength alone, but by ingenuity, patience, and the ability to teach even beings who did not share their language or customs. The sun began to set again, painting the lake in gold and pink. Eli mounted his horse, ready to return home. Talani followed him slowly. "Tomorrow," she said, "we will continue. They will need more lessons." Eli laughed softly. "Good, then I'll be ready. Maybe we'll teach them about fishing next." Talani smiled. "And perhaps about respect for water and land." "There is much they must learn," Eli nodded. "Humans always have much to teach, and they survive no matter what." As night fell over the lake, the watchers hovered silently above the water. They had learned a little, and the humans had proven their value not with force, but with intelligence, patience, and dignity. Eli looked at Talani, at the lake, and at the quiet glowing shapes. He felt a spark of hope. Humans were small, but their strength lay in things no alien could take: curiosity, ingenuity, and respect. And with that, the first real connection between humans and the watchers had been made. The morning sun broke slowly over the horizon, spilling golden light across Eli Calder's ranch. The lake sparkled in the new day, calm and deceptively ordinary. Eli had already begun his morning chores, but the memory of the watchers lingered in his mind. He had never seen anything like them, shapes of light that were not alive, yet somehow alive in thought. And yet he felt no fear. A soft voice called from the edge of the trees. "Eli," said Talani, her tone carried calm authority, "we need to return to the lake." Eli paused, leaning on his fence post. "Already?" he asked. "You think they'll be back today?" "They will observe always," she replied. "But today we must teach them more than objects. They must understand humans, not just the things we use, but why we use them, why we care." Eli nodded slowly. Humans had survived on frontier worlds not by brute force, but by cleverness, patience, and cooperation. That was their greatest strength. And he understood, without hesitation, that today would test that strength in a way he had never imagined. By mid-morning, Eli and Talani arrived at the lake. The mist hovered low over the water, shimmering faintly as if it knew the humans were coming. The watchers were already there, moving gently over the surface, their glowing forms pulsing softly. "They are ready," Talani said. She moved carefully, setting down the objects she had brought yesterday, a carved feather, a small bowl, a strip of cloth, and now a simple wooden token representing the sun, a symbol of life and guidance in her culture. Eli watched quietly. The watchers seemed to sense the importance of the objects. They floated closer, their shapes bending and stretching in patterns that almost resembled curiosity. Talani spoke clearly, slowly. "Yesterday, you learned about objects. Today, you will learn about humans themselves. About our choices, our customs, and our reasoning. We act not randomly. We act with purpose. We honor what matters to us. We do not harm without reason. We do not take without asking. We learn, we teach, we respect." The watchers pulsed softly in response. Eli realized they were not passive. They were learning actively, absorbing the rhythm and intent behind her words. Eli took a deep breath. It was his turn. "You want to understand humans," he said, speaking to the watchers, though their forms made it unclear if they truly listened as humans did. "You see us as objects, tools, patterns, but humans are more than objects. We feel. We care. We think about tomorrow as much as today. We make mistakes, but we correct them. We survive by understanding, by planning, by helping each other." He pointed toward the horizon. "This land, this lake, these animals, they are part of us and we are part of them. We do not conquer everything we see. We learn from it. We respect it. That is why humans last." Talani smiled faintly. "You speak well. Humans speak not only with words but with intent. That is something even the most advanced observers must learn to see." The watchers pulsed brighter for a moment, and Eli noticed that the mist seemed to ripple as if in agreement. After a moment of silence, Talani moved toward the wooden sun token. She held it up. "The sun gives life, guides our days. Humans build schedules, plan our work, organize our lives around its cycles. It teaches patience and planning." She placed it carefully on a flat rock. "We do not take its light for granted. We watch, we wait, and we act with purpose." The watchers hovered closer, and Eli realized they were trying to imitate the movements of the humans. Their forms shifted to mirror Talani's gestures, but clumsily, as if they understood the physical actions but not the meaning. "That's fine," Eli whispered. "They don't have to understand everything at once. They just need to feel the reason behind it." Talani nodded. "Yes, feeling is the first step. Meaning comes after." Hours passed as the humans demonstrated various aspects of human life. They showed simple tasks, gathering water, preparing food, tending animals, but each task carried explanation. Each action had a story. "This bowl," Talani explained, "is used to prepare food. But it is not just a tool. It represents life, nourishment, and sharing. Humans eat together, and we share not only food but stories, experiences, and respect. Taking this bowl without understanding would break trust, not just steal an object. The watchers pulsed again. Eli noticed a subtle change in their movement. They seemed less hesitant, more attentive. Perhaps, he thought, they were beginning to learn the concept of intention. Humans survive, Eli said softly, not because we are strongest, not because we fight the hardest. We survive because we understand, because we teach, because we respect. We solve problems without destroying the world around us. That is our power, Talani added, and because we can guide even those who are far more advanced than us, not by force but by wisdom. Eli chuckled softly. Yeah, that's us. Messy, stubborn, but clever. By late afternoon, the humans paused for a break. Eli leaned against a tree, wiping sweat from his forehead. Talani sat quietly on a rock, holding the objects gently in her hands. They are responding, she said. Not completely, not perfectly, but they notice. They understand that there is a reason behind each human action. Eli nodded. It's impressive. I never thought beings like that could even notice something like respect or intent. Talani's eyes glimmered. They can, they must. That is how humans survive. That is how humans make a mark, even in a world that does not speak our language. Eli looked at the lake, now calm again, reflecting the orange and pink sky. You know, humans are small in the universe, he said quietly, but our strength, it is invisible. And maybe that makes us the hardest to understand. Talani smiled. Exactly, that is why they will remember, and that is why humans always survive. We are clever, resourceful, and patient. We do not need to fight with fists to win. Our mind, our heart, and our choices are stronger than any weapon. The watchers hovered silently, as if absorbing every word. Eli realized something important. They had come not to conquer, but to learn. And humans, he thought with pride, had already begun teaching them. As night approached, Eli and Talani carefully gathered their objects. The watchers pulsed softly, moving back to hover over the lake. They were still observing, but now with attention and respect. Talani looked at Eli. Tomorrow, we must teach them about human connection. How we help each other, how we build communities, that is the next step. Eli nodded. Good, because they need to see that humans survive together, not alone. Talani smiled. Yes, and they will learn, slowly, but they will learn. Eli looked at the lake one last time before they turned to leave. The shapes of light shimmered faintly in the mist, and he felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Humans had faced a strange, unknown intelligence, and not with violence or fear, but with understanding, patience, and dignity. He realized as he walked back to his ranch that humans had always survived this way, on frontier worlds, in unknown lands, even among the stars. They survived because they could think, feel, and teach. And that, he knew, would always be humanity's greatest strength. The morning mist clung low over the lake as Eli called her and Talani approached once again. Today, the air was thick with anticipation. Birds called softly in the distance, but the humans and watchers were the main focus. Eli could feel the subtle tension in the stillness. The watchers were expecting something, and he knew it was his responsibility to deliver. They are ready for more lessons, Talani said quietly. Today, we teach them about human connection, how we build trust, how we help each other, how we live in communities. That is what they do not understand yet. Eli nodded. I'm ready. Let's show them. The watchers floated over the lake, their forms shimmering like liquid light. They moved closer as Eli and Talani placed the objects on the shore. Talani carried the same set as yesterday, the carved feather, the bowl, the strip of cloth, and the wooden sun token, but added a new piece, a small bundle of seed pods. These seeds, she explained, represent growth and life. Humans plant them carefully. We nurture them. We protect them. And eventually we share the harvest with our families, friends, and community. That is human connection. Eli added, it's not just food, it's trust. You care for something today, knowing that tomorrow someone else will benefit. That is how humans survive together. The watchers hovered, observing closely. Their glowing forms pulsed in rhythm with Talani's words, and Eli realized they were absorbing not just the objects, but the meaning behind them. Talani knelt and carefully placed the seeds in a small depression in the soil. "Humans do not live alone," she said. "Even the smallest village survives because people help each other. We build homes, gather water, care for the young and the old, and protect what matters." Eli watched the watchers, noting the subtle changes. One of the glowing forms seemed to linger near the seeds, bending and shifting as if trying to understand. "They notice," Eli whispered. "They are learning." "Yes," Talani said. "They can imitate, but imitation is not understanding. We must teach them why." Eli nodded. "Let's tell a story then. That's how humans teach best." He crouched beside the seeds and began to speak clearly with slow, deliberate words. "Once a small settlement lived near the edge of a desert. The sun was hot and water was scarce. The people worked together. One person dug a well, another tended crops, another built homes, and others cared for children. Each action alone was small. Together the settlement survived. They shared knowledge, food, and strength. They did not fight the desert. They worked with it." Talani added, "This story is simple, but it carries meaning. The watchers may not need the words exactly, but they feel the intent. Humans survive because we care, we help, and we understand each other. That is the lesson." The watchers pulsed more brightly. One hovered close to Eli's hand, almost touching the tablet he had used to record the demonstration. It moved slowly, tentatively. "They are trying to understand cooperation," Talani said. "Not objects, not rituals, but the relationships between humans." Eli smiled faintly. "Humans are tricky that way. We survive by thinking about tomorrow and about each other. No one else seems to do that quite like us." For the next few hours, they demonstrated simple acts of cooperation. Eli showed how to carry water together without spilling, how to lift a heavy log by coordinating movements, and how even small gestures of help made work easier. Talani added the cultural aspect, sharing, caring, and respecting each person's role. The watchers mirrored their movements, bending and shifting in ways that suggested careful attention. Sometimes they hesitated, unsure how to replicate a gesture, but their curiosity never wavered. "They are learning more than I expected," Eli said. "They might even understand the idea of teamwork soon." "Yes," Talani replied. "They will see that humans do not act for themselves alone. We survive as communities. That is a human strength they cannot ignore." By late afternoon, the watchers' behavior had changed noticeably. Their pulses slowed, and they hovered closer to the objects and humans in what seemed like contemplation. One of the larger forms extended a bright strand of light toward the seeds. The gesture was deliberate, careful. "They are trying to communicate," Talani said. "This is their version of understanding. They see the effort, the care, the meaning behind each action." Eli nodded slowly. "Humans survive because we think like that naturally. We respect life and effort, not just objects. That's why we last where others fail." Talani smiled. "It is proof. They do not need to know everything. They only need to see that humans act with intention, that we value relationships, and that we understand consequences." Eli added, "And that we teach. We survive by teaching, by guiding, not by taking or destroying. That is our advantage." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the watchers hovered silently above the lake. They were no longer simply observers. They were learners. The humans had shown them meaning, connection, and purpose, things that no tool, no scanner, no alien device could measure. Talani carefully collected the objects. "They will remember this lesson," she said. "Not perfectly, not completely, but the essence. That is enough." Eli looked at the glowing watchers, thinking of all the frontier challenges he had faced. "It's impressive," he said softly. "We didn't fight them. We didn't even argue. We just showed them who we are." "Yes," Talani said. "Humans survive because we can think, feel, and act with purpose. That is our greatest strength." Eli smiled. and maybe the toughest to understand, even for beings far smarter than us. Night fell over the lake. The watchers floated gently above the water, their pulses slow and steady. Eli and Talani walked back toward the ranch in silence, each lost in thought. "They will need more lessons," Talani said finally. "They must understand that humans also make mistakes, that we learn from failure and that is part of our survival." Eli nodded. "Tomorrow, then, we'll show them our mistakes and how we correct them. That's how humans grow." Talani looked at him, a faint smile playing on her lips. "They will see. Humans survive not because we are perfect, but because we try, we learn, and we teach. That is our gift." Eli glanced back at the lake one last time. The watchers were there, quiet, glowing, attentive, and he felt a quiet pride in humanity. Small, messy, stubborn humans had survived on frontier worlds, in deserts, mountains, and alien lands, and now they were teaching even beings far beyond human understanding. "Humans always survive," Eli said softly, "and we always leave our mark, even without fighting." "Even without force," Talani nodded. "Exactly. Our strength is invisible, but it is real. They will learn that in time." The night wrapped around the ranch. The stars reflected on the lake, peaceful and infinite. Eli and Talani returned home, ready to continue the lessons. The watchers would remain, observing, learning. But humans had shown that patience, intelligence, and respect could reach even the most advanced beings. And with that, Eli felt the quiet certainty that humanity's greatest power was not in might, but in mind, heart, and action. The morning air was crisp as Eli Calder walked along the path to the lake. Talani was already waiting, her hands clasped around the symbolic objects they had used in the previous lessons. Today felt different. The lake's mist seemed thinner, the water smoother, as if the land itself was listening. "They are ready for the final lesson," Talani said softly. "Today we teach them about responsibility, how humans care for what matters and protect what we cherish." Eli nodded. "I get it. We've shown them objects, stories, cooperation. Now they need to see how humans guard life itself." Together, they approached the lake. The watchers were already there, hovering like glowing reflections above the water. Their forms shifted and pulsed, more deliberate and steady than before. Yesterday they had learned connection. Today, Eli and Talani would teach care, trust, and protection. Talani knelt on the shore, placing a small sapling she had brought carefully into a shallow hole. "This tree represents life," she said. "Humans plant it, protect it, and watch it grow. Every creature, every plant, every person matters. We take responsibility for the life around us." Eli added, "And it's not just this tree. On the ranch, we care for animals, water, crops, even the land itself. Humans survive because we understand that everything is connected. We protect what we rely on, and that protection is part of who we are." The watchers pulsed slowly, almost as if acknowledging the words. One of the glowing forms hovered above the sapling, moving carefully as if it wanted to understand the importance of this small life. "They notice everything," Talani said quietly. "Even small gestures. That is why humans last." Eli smiled. "We do a lot with little things. That's the secret of surviving in a world that doesn't wait for mistakes." For hours, they demonstrated human care in small ways. Eli showed how to build a temporary shelter for a lost animal, how to repair broken tools instead of discarding them, and how humans share resources without taking more than necessary. Talani explained the cultural significance behind each action. "We honor the balance of life," she said. "We teach patience, responsibility, and respect. These are not just customs, they are survival skills. Every choice matters." The watchers moved closer. One reached out a bright strand of light toward the sapling, hovering over it carefully, then retracting. Eli and Talani watched without interrupting. The gesture was deliberate, cautious. It was their first attempt at imitation with understanding, not just mimicry. "They are learning more than ever," Eli whispered. "This is the moment they start to understand humans." As the sun climbed higher, Eli decided it was time for a story. Stories, he knew, carried meaning that even advanced beings could feel, if not fully understand. Once, he began, a community lived near a lake. They planted trees, raised animals, and shared food. One day, a storm threatened everything. The community worked together. They repaired homes, saved water, and protected life. In the end, nothing was lost, not because they were the strongest, but because they cared, because they acted with purpose. Talani added, "Humans survive because we act with meaning. We make choices, we protect, we teach. That is our gift and our strength. Even when others do not understand, even when the universe seems indifferent, we endure." The watchers pulsed brightly, hovering close to the objects, the tree, and the humans. Eli realized that they were no longer passive observers. They were learners, and the lessons were sinking in. By late afternoon, Talani suggested a demonstration of human trust. She placed the sapling between two small stones, then stepped back. Eli held his arms out as if to shield the plant, and together they performed a simple gesture of protection, moving slowly and deliberately to show care without touching the sapling. The watchers paused. One extended a delicate strand of light, tracing the path of the human's movements. Then, in a gesture of understanding, it hovered above the sapling for a moment, pulsed gently and retracted. "They understand intention," Talani said softly. "Not just action, but why we do it. That is the deepest lesson of all." Eli nodded, feeling a swell of pride. "That's humanity. We survive because we care. We protect, we teach, and we act with purpose. No one else does that quite like us." As evening approached, Talani and Eli gathered the objects and looked out over the lake. The watchers hovered silently, their glow soft but steady. They had learned about objects, cooperation, connection, and now responsibility. "They will remember these lessons," Talani said. "Even if they cannot fully replicate them, the essence is there. That is enough." Eli smiled faintly. "They've learned what humans do naturally. That's more than most beings ever understand." Talani turned to him. "Do you see why humans survive? Not because we fight the hardest, but because we act with intention, respect, and understanding. That is our strength. That is why even beings far beyond us must learn from us." Eli nodded. "I see it, and I'm proud to be part of it." As the sky darkened, the watchers began to drift back, moving in unison above the lake. Their light dimmed slightly, but the pulsing rhythm remained steady. It was a signal, quiet, deliberate, and filled with comprehension. "They understand the lesson," Talani whispered. "We have shown them the human way, the way we survive, the way we thrive." Eli looked at the calm water, reflecting stars and mist, and felt a deep satisfaction. Humans had faced an intelligence far beyond their own, and they had not used weapons, fear, or force. They had survived and succeeded with ingenuity, patience, and respect. "We've made a mark," he said softly. "Not with violence, not with conquest, but with understanding. That's what makes humans different. That's what makes us strong." Talani nodded. "The lake is now a boundary, not just water and land, but a symbol, a place where humans' values are recognized and remembered. They will return to their kind and share what they have learned. And in that way, humans leave a mark without destroying anything." Eli smiled. "A quiet mark, invisible but powerful. That's exactly how we survive." As the night deepened, the two humans began to walk back toward the ranch. The watchers remained, hovering softly above the lake, learning, absorbing, and observing the world in a way humans had taught them. Eli looked at Talani. "We did it. We showed them who we are." "Yes," she said, "and they will remember, slowly but surely. That is the human way." The stars above reflected on the calm lake, peaceful and infinite. The watcher's light pulsed one last time before fading into the mist. Humanity had proven without violence that intelligence, patience, and respect could make even the most advanced beings learn and change. Eli felt a quiet pride. Humans survived in deserts, on frontier worlds, in strange lands, and under alien skies, not because they were strongest, but because they were clever, patient, and compassionate. And that strength was invisible, yet unbreakable. "They will remember us," he said softly. "And we will continue to survive. Always," Talani smiled. "Yes, and one day other worlds will see what humans do best, not with power, but with mind, heart, and action." The lake was still, reflecting stars and mist. Eli and Talani walked home, knowing that humans had left an invisible mark on the Watchers' minds. The boundary they had created was more than land or water. It was a testament to human ingenuity, care, and strength. And so the frontier remained safe. The Watchers had learned, and humanity had once again shown the universe why they endured.